Hello beautiful people! Today we're doing something pretty neat. Remember how I made that video about the Cybermen invading the Halo universe where I basically just explained why the Cybermen would absolutely wipe the floor with the verse? Yeah, well I guess we're turning this into a series now, because this time we're throwing the Cyber Empire into the Star Wars galaxy during the Clone Wars and seeing how the factions within the Star Wars galaxy would do against such a threat. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Starting us off, we got the Galactic Republic. The Republic controlled over 100,000 star systems and had established planetary militias alongside the still relatively young clone army. How big was the Grand Army of the Republic? We don't really know. All we know is there were at least 3 million clones, but they very likely had more than that when you consider the statement here. Also, just the simple fact that realistically, you could not operate a galactic scale war with only 3 million clones. The clones were quite possibly the greatest fighting force ever seen in the Star Wars galaxy, many of which received training from Mandalorian mercenaries, and many clones who received that training would go on to become special forces, such as clone commandos. There are many different special units and battalions within the Grand Army of the Republic. Two of the most noteworthy battalions are the 212th and the 501st Legion, led by Jedi Generals Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Speaking of Jedi Generals, they would always be assigned as the leadership for the clone army. Clone battalions were already extremely effective soldiers, but when backed by powerful warriors with telekinesis abilities, their effectiveness increased tenfold. The Republic wasn't only using clones and Jedi on the field, though. Clone armies were backed and supported by speeders, tanks, and walkers of many shapes and sizes. They also would have had air and orbital support, but those things aren't really worth talking about since we don't have enough information on how powerful cyberships would be. Next up is the Separatist Alliance. The Separatists, like the Republic, have planetary militias of their own, but they also have an absolutely massive army of battle droids, most likely numbering in the quintillions. There are many different types of droids, all of which heavily vary in power and durability. B1 battle droids are made rather cheaply, so they can be mass-produced easily. This means they're rather flimsy against enemy fire and have cheap processing units, meaning their aim isn't always on point, but while B1s may not seem like a serious threat on their own, they make up for those flaws when deployed in large numbers alongside smarter and more powerful units like super battle droids, droidicas, commando droids, dwarf spider droids, and so on. Large droid armies are also often accompanied by vehicles and larger droids, such as the Octupara droid and homing spider droid. Unlike the clones, droids are not always accompanied by Force users, but some notable leadership includes Count Dooku, the Sith Lord, and General Grievous. Grievous is a cyborg warrior that wields 4 lightsabers and commands the masses of the droid army. While he can't use the Force, he makes up for this with his speed and overwhelming combat style. The droid army, like the clones, does have air support, but yet again, the ships just aren't really a conversation worth having because of how little we know about cyber ships. The most interesting part about the droid army and how they'll play out is how they're all machines. The Cybermen want to conquer and convert all organic life in an effort to save them from the pain of emotion and organic weakness. The droids wouldn't be on that conversion menu since they're obviously full machine. But, speaking of the Cybermen, let's talk a little about them and how capable they would be. The Cybermen are a race of cyborgs with the goal of, like I said, converting all organic life for the purpose of saving them from the torment of being organic. The Cybermen have no emotions and wish to convert every living thing into their ranks. The Cybermen have different unit types in their empire, such as the Legion Cybermen, Cyber Warriors, and War-class Cybermen. Legion Cybermen originated from a parallel Earth before joining forces with the Neomorph Cyber Empire. They are implied to have been seen on the front lines, but were likely most often seen on board cyber ships. Legion Cybermen were armed with an electric touch and wrist-mounted lasers. They were often seen with large rifles as well. Cyber Warriors, on the other hand, were specifically designed to be the main class deployed on the front lines. They are equipped with an electric touch and a wrist-mounted laser cannon. Where things really get interesting is the War-class Cybermen. War-class Cybermen are extremely resilient and durable against energy weapons, only usually being killed by cyber weapons or weapons specifically designed to kill Cybermen. The War-class Cybermen are equipped with an electric touch and a powerful wrist-mounted laser cannon. On top of that, War-class Cybermen have the ability to traverse at exceptionally fast speeds, only appearing as a blur to the naked eye. They also have extremely effective adaptation abilities. When one of these Cybermen were killed by an anti-cyber gun, they were all but vaporized. As more and more of them were killed with this weapon, we could see that they were no longer being vaporized, but still killed regardless. Eventually, after about 4 or 5 kills with that weapon, the War-class Cybermen had completely adapted and built up an immunity to the anti-cyber gun overall. If you want to kill these guys, you need to constantly update your weapons. Blaster technology seems rather universal across Star Wars, which makes me think the factions would struggle greatly against an opponent like this. I doubt they would grow some immunity to lightsabers, but most weapons would become obsolete very quickly. When it comes to vehicles, we don't really know what the Cybermen had. I think it's implied they might have had a selection of ground support vehicles, even air support. In Ascension of the Cybermen, part of the main cast stumbles onto a cyber carrier. When they realize it's a troop carrier specifically, they seem taken aback and surprised. To me, this says that we can assume they had other carriers that transported ships and vehicles and other weapons. But a vehicle we do know they had was the Cyber King. It's basically a giant robot mech thing with a huge cyber factory in its chest. These things are extremely dangerous and would absolutely shake up the battlefield quite a bit. Only 3 of them were able to spearhead an invasion of the planet Sontar in the Supremacy of the Cybermen storyline. Overall, how do I think this would go down? Well, first and foremost, Palpatine in this timeline is still going to be in charge, meaning that I think he would try and force the Republic and Separatists into a truce or alliance of some kind. After all, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Cybermen would enter the Star Wars galaxy with their absolutely massive fleet, and I think this would worry Palpatine. This would throw a serious wrench in his plans. These super advanced cyborgs with absolutely batshit numbers. By the way, let's talk about the Cybermen's numbers really quick. We don't know exactly how many Cybermen there really ever were at one time, but I think it is very reasonable to assume that the Cybermen would have had a lot of units. In Doctor Who, the Cybermen were an intergalactic empire and they fought an intergalactic war. The human race, the human empire, ended up thinking that the only way to get rid of the Cybermen was to blow up an entire galaxy. The Tiberian Spiral Galaxy. They destroyed it.
It's hard to fight an enemy that uses your armies as spare parts.
You beat them, though. Beat them or you wouldn't be here. How?
Look up there. That corner of sky, what do you see?
Nothing. It's just black. No stars, no nothing.
Well, it used to be the Tiberian Spiral Galaxy. 1 million star systems, 100 million worlds, 1 billion trillion people. It's not there anymore. No more Tiberian Galaxy. No more Cybermen.
And they thought that that destroyed the Cybermen, but it didn't. There were still more Cybermen left over outside of the Tiberian Spiral Galaxy. There were still more Cybermen that survived. The human empire eventually decided that the only proper response to seeing a Cyberman anywhere was to blow up the planet. Even if it is just one single Cyberman on one planet, they just had to blow up the entire planet. That is how terrifying the Cybermen were to these people. The human empire controls 1,000 galaxies.
And being Emperor won't be as hard if you're by my side. And you'd rule 1,000 galaxies.
If the Cyber Empire was to go to war with not only the human empire, but with other races as well, they would either need relative numbers to a faction that controls 1,000 galaxies, or they would need absolutely batshit insane firepower and technology levels to totally negate the numbers disadvantage. I'm willing to bet that they had the numbers to throw at the enemy here. You think quintillions of droids is a lot of battle droids? The Cybermen are going to make that look like nothing. So I think Palpatine would be a little concerned. And I do think that he would probably be concerned enough to at least have some kind of truce formed between the Republic and the CIS. So what would the Cybermen do? The Cybermen would probably prioritize the Republic as enemy number one. After all, the Cybermen do want to convert organic life, so their first target would likely be organic life, although they would probably have the numbers to just split up and deal with both factions at the same time. But their overall primary target is going to be the Republic, in my opinion. Because if the Cybermen manage to get a hold of the Republic or any of their planets, like Kamino, for example, if the Cybermen got any of their cloning technology or any of their facilities, then they would just have an infinite supply of new Cybermen. That would be a major tactical advantage on their part. The droid army, given their numbers, would probably be a decent threat, but overall, I still don't really think that they would be considered the primary target. Like I said, we can't really talk about naval combat because we just don't know enough about cyber ships, but how do I think things would look on the ground? I think against the more basic classes of Cybermen, like the Legion Cybermen or the Warrior class Cybermen, I think the Star Wars weapons would do fine. I think blasters would be able to kill them. I also think cyber weapons would be able to kill clones and droids just fine. So overall, both of these sides would probably be able to hurt each other. But yet again, the problem arises within the War class Cybermen. They can adapt to weapons fairly quickly. And since, from what I know, blaster technology is quite universal and rather samey across Star Wars, I think that blasters overall would be rendered quite ineffective kinda quickly. Sure, maybe heavier guns on vehicles would still remain effective just because of their overwhelming firepower, but smaller blasters like handheld rifles probably wouldn't be that effective for very long. And against Cyber Kings, I'm going to assume that these vehicles, that each faction has, would end up being able to throw enough firepower at the Cyber Kings, depending on how many there are present on a field at a time. But I do believe that these vehicles would have enough firepower to bring down Cyber Kings eventually. Would it be an immediate destruction? No, probably not, but I don't see why they couldn't. Overall though, I would say if the Republic and Separatists fight a fully conventional battle, they're going to lose. I don't really see them winning a fight like this. Their weapons will eventually become obsolete, and the Cybermen most likely just outnumber them by a lot. The only way I can see the Star Wars galaxy coming in clutch here and pulling out a win is if the Force does some weird bullshit. Jedi and Sith are extremely powerful. They are very much capable of having large impact on galaxy-spanning battles. There are meditations and techniques that can affect entire armies of troops, raising or lowering their morale, filling them with fear, confusion. How much of this would work on the Cybermen? I wouldn't really count on it, considering they don't feel emotion at all. Is there some Force technique that could possibly take advantage of the Cybermen being connected to a database? Possibly. I don't really know of any technique that could do this, but I have no doubt that there are Force techniques that could have influence on machines. I also have no doubt that Star Wars computers would be fairly good. How long would it take for them to build some kind of supercomputer to actually, truly affect the Cybermen's database? It would probably take a very long time. The Cyber Wars have been going for thousands of years. The Human Empire and other races within Doctor Who have been fighting the Cybermen for thousands of years. And not once do I know of a single time where any, disadvantage like that was basically used. I think I know a fair amount about the Cyber Wars from what we do know, and not once have I ever seen the Cybermen taken advantage of with their database. It's not like the Borg Queen, where if you kill the Borg Queen, all the Borg in the surrounding area die and the collective temporarily fails. If you kill a cyber controller or a cyber leader, they can just replace that cyber leader or controller. They don't even necessarily need leadership. They can still be tactically efficient without them. It's preferred that they have leadership, but they don't need it. It's not a requirement. All I'll say about the Cybermen being connected to a database and that possibly being taken advantage of is it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. At the end of the day, though, the Cybermen have tons of planet-destroying bombs and weapons. They are capable of converting entire planets. We see this in the show, too, cyber conversion planets. The cyber conversion planet that we see in the show is also capable of basically firing a big Death Star laser at other planets and just converting them immediately. It's really impressive stuff. The Cybermen do also have access to time travel, though it is rather crude time travel technology, and just for the sake of conversation, I would rather kind of leave that out of the equation. When I talked about this in relation to the Cybermen versus Halo, it was basically a Cyberman sweep. Just like 10 times out of 10, Cyberman victory. The only chance that the Halo universe had was if the Flood got out of hand fast enough, but I really don't think that would be likely. When we're talking about Star Wars, though, I think their chances are far better, but I still think they lose more times than not. Because of that, I will say that the Cybermen win 8 times out of 10. But what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? You think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm really smart? Are you looking forward to seeing the next video that I do just like this? Because I do have another one planned. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But hey, until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.